Hello everyone and welcome to this latest episode of Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and actually with Elvis, who's kind of sitting on the sofa next to me. I'll just kind of give you a little, there you go, say hi Elvis.
Yeah, hello.
And I just thought I'd come to you today with a quick video talking about a book I read, which was Frankenstein. Frankenstein, there we go. Not this one though, because it's the Leslie Klinger annotated Frankenstein, and I've never read Frankenstein before, so I read it on ebook just from Project Gutenberg. So there you go. And yeah, it was, as I say, a first time for me, and I read the 1818 version, and I read it with another bibliophile reads, that's Greg, Vin from Revenant Reads, and a good friend of ours, Sonja D, who's a commenter and subscriber to, I believe, probably all of our channels. And we enjoyed it. I think I was the only Frankenstein virgin in the group. But, you know, I've now read it, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. It was good. It was very good. Very well written. I'm absolutely shocked and stunned that, early 19th century, 19-year-old girl produced it. Well, any 19-year-old, doesn't matter. See, I can get myself in trouble, even without meaning to. Any 19-year-old, male or female, it's a remarkable achievement to write such a book. But it was very troublesome as well, primarily because of the main character, Victor Frankenstein, who is an absolute beep. He really is. Oh my goodness. And I think a lot of us were agreed on that. I think it's been a long time since I've come across a character in a book who is so self-obsessed, so self-absorbed, full of self-pity, realizes all the dangers that are going to be coming to those around him, and does nothing, absolutely nothing, to save anybody, protect anybody. And when he does have the chance to do something, he gives it up, and honestly, it was so frustrating. It started off very well. I really enjoyed the part where, the letters between Walton and his sister on the book in the Arctic, as he's heading up through Russia, St. Petersburg, up to the Arctic, and they come across Victor Frankenstein on his sled, and they rescue him and bring him on board, and then he starts to tell his story. Now, Walton, the guy at the beginning who's writing letters, is also a beep, to be honest with you. He really is. The whole time, he's just obsessed with himself. Doesn't care the agony and pain he's probably putting his sister to, the woman he's writing to. Is only thinking about himself. Both men are friendless. I don't really know why Walton is friendless, to be honest. Well, probably I do, because he's a bit of a beep. Victor is friendless is because the monster killed all his friends, pretty much, right? So that's that. And then, obviously while Victor's recovering on the ship, he starts to tell the story of his misfortune, all brought upon himself by himself, I would say, pretty much. So, I would say he deserved it, apart from the fact that innocent people got killed, of course, during that book. And he lets them get killed. That's what I can't get over. My goodness. Oh, I'd slap him if I could. I really would. It really surprised me, though, whilst reading this, how... because the only contact I've had with Frankenstein has been through film. And of course, it's nothing like that at all. And I expected the creation of the monster to be a really big part of the book. However, it isn't at all. And I missed it first time round. I think it was like at the top of my page, and it was only in something like 3-5 lines, something like that. And when I picked up the book again, I must have started reading under it. And I missed the creation. 1 minute there's no monster, the next minute there is a monster. And I thought, well, how did this happen? I carried on reading, just thinking, oh, maybe it glossed over. And then I had to go back, and I found out, yeah, it is there, but it is like literally the smallest part of the book, really. Which Greg from another bibliophile read said, well, it's probably a good thing because, she's leaving that element of mystery, and I suppose it would have been more difficult to do it, really to explain the science and this kind of stuff. So the way she does it, I suppose, is really good, but it just surprised me that it was just such a minute element to the story. And one other thing, I don't really understand why he rejects that monster so quickly, because he does. It's like immediate. He's like, oh God, he's ugly, but he could see he was ugly before he gave him life, as it were. And as Vin from Revenant Reed said, the poor monster was basically like an infant, really. He couldn't form words, he couldn't speak properly. When he went to look into Victor Frankenstein as he was sleeping, it was only out of probably bewilderment, looking for somebody to kind of give him guidance and give him love. That's all he ever wanted, was to be loved, of course, But he just immediately rejects him. And I suppose the monster is a little bit quick to kind of act out his revenge. Although I think the killing of Victor's younger brother William was accidental. Now, what I didn't understand was, I think Vin said that he framed the servant girl Justine. I didn't notice that. I thought maybe he found her attractive, and that's why he left this locket for her. Because if you haven't read it, that's what he does. Once he kills the boy, he takes this locket off, and then he leaves it. And oh no, sorry, I'm talking nonsense. He slips it into the girl's pocket. So yeah, that's right. So he probably is deliberately framing it. Anyway, this poor maidservant Justine gets done for the boy's murder. And all the while, Victor knows who's responsible and does nothing to help Justine, who of course ends up getting executed for the murder. Now, obviously, he can't go around telling people that he's, reanimating corpses, but he probably could have told his father. His father's a very understanding person. So he could have told him, and together they probably could have said, well, there's this madman following me. I've had some trouble in the past. He's probably come over here and he's done it. It isn't Justine. And given the fact of how important class is and the influence of the upper classes on things, they probably would have got her off. So, that's pretty harsh as well. And basically, he ends up meeting his monster, and they have a discussion. And the monster is extremely eloquent. It's quite amazing how eloquent the monster's become in a relatively short time. And he, of course, is complaining about the fact he's alone, and even Adam had Eve, and he wants his own Eve, so he wants Victor to create a partner for him, which Victor eventually agrees to, of course, but he dilly-daddles, and he heads off on a trip to England and Scotland, and he takes his friend Henry, his best friend Henry, with him, and they split up. Victor goes north on one of the islands in north of Scotland to make this Eve for the monster, and then the monster's watching him, and he then decides to just destroy everything he's worked for, because he doesn't want to create a race of monster people that will be running around terrorizing everybody. And as both Vin and Sonja said in our discussion, why on earth would he make them capable of procreating anyway? He has that ability not to put a womb inside her or whatever, so he doesn't have to do that. I don't know. Maybe Mary Shelley wasn't completely up on the biology of things, but it does just seem really weird to me. You could have just made a woman that was infertile, or maybe the monster himself would have been infertile. They wouldn't have produced a race of monster people anyway, so it really wouldn't have mattered. The whole thing could have been over, but then I suppose it would have been a rather short and perhaps pointless book. And Frankenstein's got to suffer, hasn't he? So his best friend gets murdered. He's then seen to be by the local people in this small fishing village seen to be the murderer. Of course, we know he isn't, and he gets off, and it's all fine. Or is it? It's not. He's depressed. Of course, he starts talking about how depressed he is. That's all he goes on about, is how depressed he is, and woe is me, and how terrible my life is, and that how the monster threatened him that the moment he gets married, he's going to destroy his life, destroy his wife, and all this kind of stuff. So instead of doing what a normal person would do and probably not get married and marry the woman that he's loved his whole life, because he wants to save her, what does he do? He goes and gets married to her. And of course, she gets murdered straight away, which is like, again, bizarre because he knows that this guy's coming. He's heading off to check a few things. And while he's out doing that, she gets murdered. If he'd stayed with her, I mean, he was armed with pistols and things. And then it really annoys me at the end, right? Because what happens is Victor Frankenstein's on his deathbed now, suddenly. You know, he's been fine telling this story and whatnot, and then suddenly he's on his deathbed and he dies. The monster comes in to lament his death and decides he's going to kill himself. Now, after all the trouble, you know, that he's caused Victor and people in his life, he's now decided to take his own life. So that's weird. I kind of wish that nobody else actually saw the monster, because Walton sees that monster and then he knows, of course, he exists. Whereas I think it would have been really interesting if the only person who'd ever seen the monster was Victor Frankenstein. In which case there could have been that kind of maybe Jekyll and Hyde thing, or maybe even the whole thing's a figment of his imagination. He's just completely insane. But that's what I think. Anyway, it just seems very, very odd. The whole character of Victor is just a terrible, terrible character, terrible person, and just these kind of things frustrated me. However, the power of Mary Shelley's writing, the way the story moved, the way the story was actually structured, were all big positives for me, and I did enjoy it despite my complaining about things now. So it was the 1818 version I read. I haven't read the later one. I believe both are included in here, at least. The main differences are certainly very much highlighted. I've been flipping through it. I haven't read this yet because I've got other things to read for now, but I certainly will go back and read this version. Now I've broken the Frankenstein cherry, so to speak, and read the book. So there we go. That's kind of what I think. I wonder what you think of this novel, Frankenstein. As I say, it's very remarkable work, but surely you would have to admit that Frankenstein is a bit of a beep. Everybody take care. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.